Well, joining me now is Yucel Acer from Ankara. He's a professor of international law at Yildirim Beyazıt University. Really good to have you back with us, Professor. We've seen the fallout from this offensive act in Stockholm really grow to the point that Sweden's Prime Minister has essentially tried to condemn the act of burning the Quran outside the Turkish embassy. Is there anything at this point Sweden can do in order to repair relations with Türkiye?
I think it's right to start with the process of Sweden and Finland to become a possible member of the NATO. You know, just after the Russia-Ukraine war, two countries started a process of dialogue with member countries to become a NATO member. Last year, in the middle of last year. So just after that process, Turkey, Finland and Sweden signed a memorandum of understanding about solving the bilateral issues before two countries became a NATO member. In this memorandum, Sweden has actually promised to cooperate with Turkey fully in terms of, tackling with the terrorist organizations and terrorists living in Sweden. So, although these kind of issues have been agreed on by 2 and 3 countries, in recent months and in recent weeks, Sweden, quite astonishingly, started to allow certain activities in Sweden which really disturb Turkish interests in terms of national security, threatened by terrorist organizations. The first incidents that were allowed by Sweden government were the demonstrations by the PKK organization members or related people in Sweden, in Stockholm. And Turkey expected Sweden to ban these kind of activities. And moreover, Turkey expected Sweden to hand over some suspected terrorists living in Sweden. Despite these expectations and the memorandum, Sweden was actually, in recent weeks, acting quite contrary to these expectations and memorandum. The last and maybe the most significant issue was allowing a person burning Quran in the streets of Stockholm near Turkish embassy. So these kind of activities are really harming the national sentiments of Turkey and Turkish people and the Muslim people in the world. And the expectation is that Sweden should stop allowing these kind of activities. Another significant development was the prosecutor decided not to open even an investigation over the terrorist demonstrations, like insulting Turkish President Erdogan in the streets of Stockholm. I think the essential point here is that, politically speaking, Sweden should change its present attitudes and fully cooperate in terms of fighting against the terrorist organization and people assaulting on religious symbols and sentiments.
That's right, because even before this Quran burning incident, Ankara was growing increasingly frustrated with Stockholm for everything that you just said, for the perceived lack of action on Sweden's part in terms of addressing Turkiye's security concerns, such as clamping down on the presence of the PKK terror group in Sweden. But at this point, do you believe if Sweden's Prime Minister apologizes for allowing this protest outside the embassy to take place, for apologizing for the burning of the Quran, might that get things back on track? Could that begin to heal the divisions that we're seeing right now?
I think, of course, the apologies and some statements, favoring the expectations of Turkey and Muslim people contributing to the process. But I think just apologies is not enough, simply because, the Swedish authorities have been emphasizing the freedom of expression. They just were saying that we allow these kind of demonstrations and burning Quran because there is a freedom of expression in Sweden. That's quite, misleading in a sense that freedom of expression is defined in the European Convention on Human Rights, and Turkey and Sweden are parties alongside with other 46 European countries. According to this right of expression, there are limits in terms of, especially if the religion and the violence are concerned, there are clearly defined limits defined by international European Court of Human Rights. According to the court's decisions, states are not able to allow any activities assaulting the religious symbols, directly attacking these religious symbols, assaulting the religious symbols. On the other hand, there are court decisions banning any kind of demonstrations like, supporting the terrorist and violence activities, and there are clear court decisions. So, because the European Court of Human Rights are, establishing, like a common understanding on the freedom of expression, Sweden is also expected not to allow these kind of activities, assaulting the religious activities, and normalizing such kind of demonstrations favoring the terrorist organizations. So, alongside with the apologies, which are of course quite positive developments, but also Swedish government is expected not to allow these kind of activities and also punish the people who are assaulting the religious symbols and also like supporting the terrorist organizations. I think the Sweden is clearly and legally are obliged to do these kind of things to restore the relations with Turkey and in order to become a NATO full member.
Okay, Professor Yucel Acer, we will have to leave it there, but it was really good to get your analysis as always. Thank you again for joining us.